In the year 701 BC, the most powerful army of its era, numbering 185,000 warriors, was poised for imminent victory over a besieged city. Their shields shone under the moonlight, and their swords were at the ready for the final attack. These were seasoned soldiers, veterans of numerous battles, who belonged to the formidable Assyrian Empire. However, an extraordinary event was about to unfold, one that would alter the course of history. Jerusalem found itself in an apparently impossible situation. King Hezekiah and his people were cornered within the city walls, facing what seemed to be their inevitable end. The Assyrian Empire, known for its unparalleled brutality and advanced warfare techniques, had conquered kingdom after kingdom, leaving a trail of destruction wherever it went. Woe to the Assyria! The rod of my anger is in your hand, the club of my indignation is in your hand. The words of the prophet Isaiah 10:5 reverberated like a resounding echo over the most formidable empire of antiquity. On the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, within the geographical confines of modern-day northern Iraq, stood a nation that sent a shudder through the ancient world. The prophet Nahum, in contemplating this military force, depicted a harrowing scene. Their shields were a deep red, their soldiers were attired in scarlet, and the chariots of the army moved like bolts of lightning. Nahum 2:3-4. This vision was one that would cause any nation to tremble at the prospect of opposing the Assyrian Empire. Under the command of King Sennacherib, who reigned from 705 to 681 BC, the empire reached new heights of power and cruelty, akin to an overwhelming flood, as described by the prophet Isaiah. Therefore, the Lord will bring against them the mighty and many waters of the river, that is the king of Assyria, with all his host. Isaiah 8 verse 7. This was not merely a metaphor, it was a brutal reality that spread across all known lands. In his 14th year of reign over Judah, King Hezekiah faced what seemed to be the inevitable end. The scriptures tell us that Sennacherib, king of Assyria, attacked all the fortified cities of Judah and captured them. 2 Kings 18:13. The fall of the strongholds of Judah was gradual and inevitable, akin to the withering of leaves in autumn before the Assyrian tempest. The Assyrian capital, Nineveh, stood as a testament to its might and haughtiness. The prophet Jonah offers insight into the city's grandeur, stating, "Nineveh was a great city. It took 3 days to go through it." Jonah 3 verse 3. From the city's gates, Sennacherib directed his military forces with a combination of military strategy and calculated cruelty. The Assyrian messengers were adept at psychological intimidation, as evidenced by their words recorded in the scriptures. These messages reveal their tactics, which targeted not only leaders but also ordinary citizens. Sennacherib's military strategy, as outlined in the scriptures, involved a combination of military brilliance and calculated cruelty. The Assyrian messengers were adept at psychological intimidation, utilizing threats that not only targeted leaders but also the general populace. This approach is exemplified in the scriptures when addressing the inhabitants of Jerusalem with grotesque threats, evoking a terror so profound that the very words conjure up images of impending doom. The empire had already demonstrated its military might by conquering the northern kingdom, resulting in the captivity of the 10 tribes of Israel, as recorded in 2 Kings 17 verse 5-6. Samaria, which had initially withstood the Assyrian forces for a period of 3 years, ultimately capitulated. The Assyrian army systematically deported and dispersed the city's population, a tactic that had been perfected by the Assyrians in their conquest of other peoples. Sennacherib's hubris reached its zenith when he made a bold comparison, likening the Assyrian Empire to a divine entity. Samaria, having resisted for 3 years, was ultimately conquered by the Assyrian Empire. The Assyrians employed a strategy of deportation and dispersion, a tactic designed to break the resistance of conquered peoples. Sennacherib's arrogance reached its zenith when he likened the God of Israel to the idols of other nations. In a speech full of blasphemy, his officials proclaimed, "Has any god of any nation ever been able to save his land from the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath and Arpad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim? Have they delivered Samaria out of my hand?" 2 Kings 18:33-34. This confrontation represented more than a mere contest for territory or resources. It was an explicit challenge to the dominion of the God of Israel, The Assyrian Empire, in its arrogance, had transgressed a threshold that no other nation had previously traversed. They were not merely challenging an earthly kingdom, but the very existence of the King of Kings. The words of the prophet Isaiah assumed a fresh significance as the siege loomed on the horizon. According to the prophecy, the Lord declared, "He will not enter this city or shoot an arrow there. He will not come before it with a shield or build a ramp against it." Isaiah 37 verse 33. It was a pledge that appeared to be unattainable in the face of the substantial might of the Assyrian military force. Presently, at the city gates of Jerusalem stood the most formidable military force the world had ever witnessed. With an army of 185,000 warriors, advanced military equipment, and horses and chariots, the Assyrians appeared to be invincible. However, they were on the verge of experiencing a lesson that would resonate throughout history. No earthly empire, no matter how powerful, can be compared to the power of the God of Israel. Amidst the looming shadow of Assyrian dominance, a city was poised to alter the course of history. Jerusalem, the city of the great king, was under the leadership of a man whose name signified, "The Lord is my strength." Hezekiah. The scriptures portray Hezekiah as a king who lived in accordance with divine principles, following the example of his father, David. Hezekiah removed idols from the temple, destroyed sacred pillars, and cut down the Asherah poles. In an era characterized by moral and spiritual compromise, Hezekiah emerged as a beacon of light amidst the darkness. From the onset of his reign at the age of 25, Hezekiah exhibited remarkable resolve. The sacred text attests to his unwavering trust in the Lord, the God of Israel. His singularity stands out, unparalleled among all the kings of Judah, both in times past and future. 2 Kings 18:5. This profound trust, which the sacred text describes as unwavering, was demonstrated in the face of adversity and tested in the most challenging circumstances. Hezekiah's inaugural act as king was to initiate the restoration of the Lord's temple, which had been neglected and defiled during his father Ahaz's reign. The doors of the temple, which had been closed for an extended period, were reopened by Hezekiah in the first month of his reign. In the first year of his reign, Hezekiah opened the doors of the Lord's temple and undertook their repair, as recorded in 2 Chronicles 29 verse 3. This was not merely an architectural reform, rather, it marked the onset of a profound spiritual awakening within the king himself. Under his leadership, Jerusalem underwent a remarkable transformation. The Levites were summoned to purify the temple, expelling all that was deemed impure. Worship was restored, sacrifices were reinstated, and the people commenced celebratory observances of Passover, a festival that had not been properly observed for generations. From the days of Solomon, David's son and the king of Israel, such a celebration had never been witnessed in Jerusalem. 2 Chronicles 30:26. Hezekiah's contributions extend beyond spiritual reform, encompassing the roles of a wise administrator and a prudent strategist. Recognizing the threats posed to his kingdom, Hezekiah undertook significant fortifications, including the construction of the Siloam Tunnel, a remarkable engineering feat that ensured the provision of water to the city during prolonged sieges. Hezekiah's legacy also includes the construction of the upper pool and the tunnel that supplied water to the western part of the city of David. Hezekiah's preparations did not stop there. The scriptures tell us that he rebuilt all the broken sections of the wall, raised up the towers on it, built another wall outside, strengthened the millstone house in the city of David, and made many spear shafts and shields. 2 Chronicles 32-5. The strategic placement of every stone and the fabrication of every weapon served as a testament to his prudence and foresight. However, Jerusalem's greatest strength did not lie in its defensive fortifications or its water supply, but rather in the unwavering faith of its king. When rumors of the approaching Assyrians began to circulate, Hezekiah gathered his people and addressed them, offering words that would resonate throughout history. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged because of the king of Assyria and the vast army with him. For the Lord your God is the one who goes with you. He will not leave you or forsake you. 2 Chronicles 32 verse 7-8. This was the scene in Jerusalem when the first Assyrian flags appeared on the horizon. The city was fortified not only with stones and mortar, but also with faith and prayer. Its people, under the leadership of a righteous king, had returned to the God of their fathers. This nation was about to witness one of the greatest demonstrations of divine power ever recorded in human history. The sound of marching feet could be heard from a distance, creating an ominous atmosphere as the Assyrian army approached Jerusalem. The Assyrian army was known for its formidable reputation, and the scriptures offer a detailed account of this moment. In the 14th year of King Hezekiah's reign, Sennacherib, the Assyrian king, attacked and captured the fortified cities of Judah. This event is recorded in 2 Kings 18 verse 13. The initial display of strength occurred through Rabshakeh, a high-ranking official. The Assyrian army, a formidable force with a reputation for terror, advanced toward Jerusalem. This moment is vividly described in the scriptures. In the 14th year of King Hezekiah's reign, Sennacherib, the Assyrian king, launched a major offensive against the fortified cities of Judah, capturing several of them. The initial display of force was orchestrated by Rabshakeh, a high-ranking official of Sennacherib. He did not approach with drawn swords, but with words that were as sharp as razors. He positioned himself near the Upper Pool Aqueduct, on the route leading to the Field of the Lavenders. This was the same location where, years earlier, Isaiah had confronted King Ahaz, delivering his psychological warfare speech. His words. The initial demonstration of strength was executed by Rabshakeh, a high-ranking official of Sennacherib. He did not arrive with drawn swords, but rather with words that were as sharp as razors. He positioned himself near the Upper Pool Aqueduct, on the route leading to the Field of the Lavenders. This was the same location where Isaiah had previously encountered King Ahaz, years before he initiated his psychological warfare speech. His words, meticulously documented in the scriptures, were a deliberate blend of intimidation and seduction. Hezekiah, the king of Judah, was informed of the following by the great king, the king of Assyria. Why do you place your trust in strategies and might? Since you are nothing but talk, who do you trust to deliver you from me? 2 Kings 18:19-20. Rabshakeh, intimately familiar with the local culture, articulated his threats in Hebrew, a language comprehensible to the populace encircling the city, with the intent to foment trepidation and disarray among the inhabitants of Jerusalem. Hezekiah's officials implored, "We implore you to address us in Aramaic, for we comprehend your language. Please refrain from using Hebrew, as it is audible to the listeners on the wall." 2 Kings 18:26. However, the Assyrian official amplified his voice, addressing them in Hebrew. "Listen to the words of the great king, the king of Assyria. This is what the king says: Do not allow Hezekiah to deceive you. He is incapable of saving you from my grasp." 2 Kings 18:28-29. His words were akin to poisoned arrows, striking directly at the people's faith. The Assyrian strategy was evident: first, discredit Hezekiah's leadership, then, challenge their trust in God. Finally, offer a tempting alternative: do not listen to Hezekiah. This is what the king of Assyria says: Make peace with me and surrender. Each of you will eat from your own vine and fig tree, and drink water from your own cistern. 2 Kings 18:31. A particularly blasphemous moment occurred when Rabshakeh compared the living God to the deceased idols of other nations, asserting, "Can any god of any nation save his land from the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath and Arpad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim? Have they delivered Samaria out of my hand?" 2 Kings 18:33-34. The correspondence from Sennacherib to Hezekiah was unambiguous in its challenge. Do not allow the deity in which you place your trust to mislead you when it asserts that Jerusalem will not be conquered by the king of Assyria. Undoubtedly, you have been informed of the actions of the Assyrian kings against all the lands and their deities, resulting in their complete destruction. Do you truly believe that you will be spared? 2 Kings 19:10-11. The siege of Jerusalem was not merely a military conflict, it was a direct challenge to the sovereignty of the God of Israel. The words of the prophet Isaiah gained new meaning. Whom have you insulted and blasphemed? Against whom have you raised your voice and looked with pride? Against the Holy One of Israel? Isaiah 37 verse 23. The people of Jerusalem faced a critical decision: to place their trust in God's promises as articulated by Hezekiah, or to surrender to the seductive threats and promises of the Assyrians. The words of Rabshakeh had sown seeds of doubt, instilling a sense of uncertainty among the populace. Hezekiah attempted to deceive the people by proclaiming that the Lord would deliver them. However, the historical record reveals that no god of any nation has ever successfully rescued his land from the king of Assyria. 2 Kings 18:32-33. However, the populace remained taciturn, complying with their monarch's directives. They refrained from responding, as the king had commanded. 2 Monarchs 1836. This silence was more eloquent than any verbal response, representing a profound act of faith in God. The city of Jerusalem was encircled by the looming threat of the Assyrian Empire, a dark cloud that hung over the city like a storm. However, within the city's walls, a king and his people were on the verge of witnessing one of the most remarkable demonstrations of divine power ever recorded in human history. Faced with the looming threat of the Assyrian Empire, Hezekiah's response unveils the true nature of a man of God. Upon hearing this news, King Hezekiah tore his clothes, covered himself in sackcloth, and entered the temple of the Lord. 2 Kings 191. This was not an expression of despair, but rather a manifestation of profound humility and reliance on God. The juxtaposition of these two figures is striking. On one side is the proud Assyrian Empire, confident in its military strength and its own grandeur. On the other is a king prostrating himself before the God of the universe, recognizing his complete reliance on the divine. The scriptural accounts reveal that the contrast between the actions of Hezekiah and those of the proud Assyrian Empire is striking. While the former king demonstrated profound humility and dependence on God, the latter exhibited a confidence in military strength and national grandeur. The scriptures reveal that Hezekiah not only prayed, but also poured his heart out before the Lord. With wisdom, Hezekiah sent his top officials, dressed in sackcloth, to the prophet Isaiah. They conveyed to Isaiah the following message from Hezekiah. This is what Hezekiah says: "Today is a day of distress, rebuke, and humiliation. We are like a woman in labor, but we have no strength to give birth to kings." 19:3. Hezekiah's prayer in the temple is widely regarded as one of the most poignant moments in the biblical narrative. He placed the ominous letter from Sennacherib before the Lord, a symbolic gesture demonstrating his unwavering trust in God. His words reveal a profound comprehension of the fundamental nature of the conflict. In his supplication, Hezekiah acknowledged the sovereign dominion of the Almighty Lord, seated between the cherubim, over all the kingdoms of the earth. He implored for restoration and mercy, recognizing the divine creation of heaven and earth. The prayer culminated in a plea for intervention, imploring the Lord to look down from heaven and see and hear the taunts sent by Sennacherib, a plea to challenge the very existence of the living God. In his prayer, Hezekiah acknowledged the reality of the situation. While it is true that the Assyrians had destroyed nations and their gods, he understood the fundamental difference. It is true, Lord, that the kings of Assyria have devastated nations and their lands and have thrown their gods into the fire, and they are no gods at all. They are only wood and stone, fashioned by human hands. 2 Kings 19 verse 17. The conclusion of Hezekiah's prayer reveals the true reason for his plea. Now, Lord our God, deliver us from his hand so that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that you alone, Lord our God, are the one and only true God. Hezekiah's prayer demonstrates that he was not only praying for Jerusalem's survival, but also for the glory of the Lord's name. This response of faith was not a novel development in Hezekiah's life. The scriptures tell us that he trusted in the Lord, the God of Israel. Hezekiah was unparalleled among all the kings of Judah, both those who came before and those who came after him. 2 Kings 18 verse 5. In the most critical moment of his life, the king's trust was being tested. While he awaited a divine response, the benefits of his previous actions in preparing the city continued to be felt by the people. The Siloam tunnel he had built ensured the provision of fresh water within the city's walls, and the fortifications he had reinforced provided security. However, his greatest work had been preparing the people's hearts to trust in the Lord. The words he had spoken earlier resonated throughout the corridors of Jerusalem: "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged because of the king of Assyria and the vast army with him. For the Lord your God is the one who goes with you. He will not leave you or forsake you." 2 Chronicles 32. Hezekiah's response to the crisis exemplifies an enduring principle. In the face of adversity, true strength does not lie in external resources but in intimacy with God. His response underscores that, in the face of formidable threats, believers should prioritize prayer. As Hezekiah waited, prostrate in the temple, the word of the Lord came through the prophet Isaiah, and the divine response was immediate and resounding, akin to the sound of thunder amidst a storm. This is what the Lord says concerning Sennacherib, king of Assyria: "I am about to put an end to this war against you, and you will not enter the city or shoot an arrow there." 2 Kings 19:20. What followed was one of the most powerful prophecies recorded in the Scriptures. Through Isaiah, God directed himself first against the arrogance of the Assyrian Empire. "The Lord will cause the arrogant pride of all your warriors to be like flying dust, which is swept away by a gust of wind." 2 Kings 19:21. This dramatic reversal is of particular interest, as it depicts the city, which had previously seemed to be at the mercy of the Assyrians, mocking its supposed conqueror. Through these words, the Lord exposed the true nature of Sennacherib's sin. "Whom have you insulted and blasphemed? Against whom have you raised your voice and looked with pride? Against the Holy One of Israel." 2 Kings 19:22. The Assyrian king had not only challenged a city, he had challenged God himself. The prophecy continued, dismantling the Assyrian presumption piece by piece. "Through your own servants you have mocked the Lord, and you said, 'With my many chariots I have ascended to the heights of the mountains, to the tops of the Carmelites. I have cut down your cedars and taken your best fir trees. I have penetrated to the farthest limits of your forests, to your best woods." 2 Kings 19:23. Subsequently, a remarkable revelation emerged. The formidable might and Assyrian conquests were, in reality, components of a divine stratagem. "It has been conveyed to me that the Lord has bestowed upon me a revelation and a confirmation concerning you, your progeny, and your legions. I have relinquished you into his custody. He will extinguish the resplendence of your legions. He will sever your chariots and their operators, the formidable warriors who accompany them." 2 Kings 19:25. The Lord subsequently conveyed his decision through the prophet Isaiah, who articulated a comprehensive and precise prophecy. The Lord's pronouncement concerning the king of Assyria is as follows: "He will not enter this city or shoot an arrow there. He will not come before it with a shield or build a ramp against it. By the way he came, he will return. He will not enter this city," declares the Lord. 2 Kings 19:32-33. The prophecy encompassed not only the protection of Jerusalem, but also a sign to substantiate the divine word. This sign was revealed to Hezekiah. "This year you will eat what grows of itself, and the next year what springs from that. But in the third year sow and reap, plant vineyards and eat their fruit." 2 Kings 19:29. This triple promise encompasses immediate deliverance, gradual restoration, and future prosperity. The remnant of Judah was not only predicted to survive but to flourish once more. The text states that the remnant of the house of Judah will take root in the land once more and bear fruit upward. Isaiah concluded the prophecy with a declaration that would resonate through the centuries. "For the remnant of the house of Judah will again take root in the land, produce fruit upward." 2 Kings 19:31. This deliverance, as outlined in the prophetic text, would not be brought about by military might or human ingenuity, but rather by the fervor of the Lord himself. The prophetic message conveyed not only a promise of deliverance, but also a critique of human hubris and an affirmation of divine sovereignty. It served as a reminder that when God speaks, even the most formidable earthly empires must yield. The prophetic word conveyed not only a promise of deliverance, but also an exposure of human pride and an affirmation of divine sovereignty. It was a reminder that when God speaks, even the greatest earthly empires must bow. As the sun set over Jerusalem, 185,000 Assyrian soldiers camped around the city. The tents stretched as far as the eye could see, and the enemy campfires glowed like fallen stars on earth. Within the city walls, the people of Judah waited, sustained only by the prophetic word and their faith in their God. That very night, 2 Kings 19 verse 35. This marks the onset of one of the most extraordinary events in biblical history, introduced by 4 unassuming words that foreshadow a moment of divine intervention that would alter the course of ancient history. The angel of the Lord proceeded to slay 185,000 Assyrian soldiers encamped around the city, a pivotal moment captured in the annals of history. 2 Kings 19:35. The brevity of the biblical text stands in stark contrast to the magnitude of the event. In a single night, the most formidable army in the ancient world was decimated. The account continues with remarkable simplicity. When the people came out in the morning, there were all the dead bodies. 2 Kings 19:35. The scene is described as follows. The sunrise reveals a spectacle no one could have foreseen. The sepulchral silence replaces the noise of a vast military camp. The fulfillment of Isaiah's prophecy is literal and devastating. The text states, "I will set my hook in his nose and fill his teeth with bronze. I will turn him back by the roads he has traveled." 2 Kings 19:28. Sennacherib, the monarch who had vaunted his might, made a return to Nineveh and took up residence there. 2 Kings 19:36. The humiliation of the mighty Assyrian king did not end there. The scriptures recount his inglorious end. One day, while he was worshipping in the temple of his god Nisroch, his sons Adramelech and Sherezah killed him with the sword. 2 Kings 19:37. The man who had challenged the living God met his end before a dead idol. The contrast could not be more striking. The same God whom Sennacherib had mocked proved to be the only true Lord of hosts, as he had declared through Isaiah. "I will defend this city and save it for my own sake and for the sake of my servant David." 2 Kings 19 verse 34. The walls of Jerusalem, which previously appeared to be of negligible importance when juxtaposed with the formidable military might of the Assyrians, remained unscathed, not due to their inherent strength, but rather due to their divine protection. This outcome aligns with the prophecy of Isaiah, who foretold that the city would not be entered by the Assyrian forces, nor would they launch any projectiles from within the city. They would not approach with shields or construct ramps to attack the city. The phenomenon that transpired that night was not solely the preservation of a city, it was also the vindication of the Lord's name. This outcome aligned with Hezekiah's prayer, which implored the Lord to deliver us from his hand. 2 Kings 19 verse 19, thereby demonstrating that the Lord is the sole deity. The morning brought about more than a military victory, it was a demonstration of the living God's power over dead idols, humility over arrogance, and faith over fear. The people of Jerusalem contemplated not only the defeat of an enemy, but also the faithfulness of a God who keeps his promises. In light of this event, the psalmist's words gain new meaning. "Come, let us examine and probe our ways, and let us return to the Lord. Let us lift up our hearts and hands to God in heaven." Psalm 46 verse 8-9. The sun's ascent over Jerusalem signaled a new era in the city's history. This event served as a testament to the continued sovereignty of the divine over human affairs, a notion that was reinforced by the biblical narrative. The narrative conveyed a clear message: when God intervenes on behalf of his people, no human force can prevail. The deliverance of Jerusalem is not merely a religious event, it has also been corroborated by secular historical sources, archaeological discoveries, and ancient records. Among the most notable findings is the Sennacherib prism, a hexagonal clay artifact currently preserved at the Oriental Institute of Chicago. Contains a record that the Assyrian king himself has made. In this record, the Assyrian king talks about his campaign against the Judean kingdom. The king talks about a man named Hezekiah, who was a Jew and did not submit to his rule. The king says that he laid siege to Hezekiah's fortified cities, strong walls, and countless small villages in their vicinity. What makes this record even more intriguing is what the Annals of the Oriental Institute of Chicago contain: a remarkable account by the Assyrian king, Sennacherib, regarding his military campaign against the Judean kingdom. In this account, Sennacherib boasts of having besieged Jerusalem and having held Hezekiah captive, akin to capturing a bird in a cage. However, intriguingly, the account does not mention the conquest of the city. This omission stands in stark contrast to the meticulous detail of Sennacherib's other victories, aligning with the biblical account in 2 Kings 19. The Greek historian Herodotus, regarded as the father of history, also documents an intriguing tradition concerning the Assyrian army in Egypt, mentioning a plague of rats that rapidly destroyed the Assyrian military equipment. While the details differ from the biblical account, it is noteworthy that an independent source corroborates an enigmatic nocturnal disaster that decimated the Assyrian army. Assyrian records also substantiate another salient detail of the biblical narrative, namely the assassination of Sennacherib by his own sons, as recounted in 2 Kings 19 verse 37. The Babylonian chronicles corroborate the biblical account with historical accuracy, mentioning this regicide. Archaeological excavations in Jerusalem have revealed Hezekiah's extensive preparations for the siege, especially the impressive Siloam tunnel mentioned in 2 Kings 20 verse 20. This ancient engineering marvel, which was carved through solid rock, can still be visited today, thus corroborating the historical accuracy of the biblical account. In Lachish, one of Judah's primary cities, archaeologists discovered compelling evidence of the Assyrian campaign. The reliefs from Sennacherib's palace in Nineveh, which are now housed in the British Museum, vividly depict the siege and capture of this city. However, there is a notable absence of similar reliefs that depict the conquest of Jerusalem. This is what the Lord says, "This is the way, walk in it." Isaiah 30 verse 21. The prophetic word under consideration here resonates with the archaeological evidence that is continually being unearthed in Israel. Each discovery serves as a silent testimony to the veracity of the biblical narrative. Furthermore, historical studies aid in comprehending the geopolitical impact of the event in question. The sudden retreat of the Assyrian army not only saved Jerusalem, but also altered the balance of power throughout the region. In accordance with the prophecies of Isaiah, the remnant of the house of Judah will once again take root in the land and bear fruit. 2 Kings 19 verse 30. According to the prophet Isaiah, the Lord's benevolence awaits those who call upon him. Isaiah 30 verse 18 states, "The Lord will rise up and show you compassion." Historical evidence substantiates that this anticipation was not futile. The God who pledged to safeguard Jerusalem materialized his promise in such a striking manner that it imprinted enduring marks not only in sacred annals but also in secular chronicles, as delineated in Psalm 48 verse 8. As we have heard, so we have seen in the city of the Lord of. According to the prophecies, the Lord's benevolence toward his people is contingent upon their obedience. The historical record indicates that this anticipation was substantiated by the Lord's intervention in Jerusalem's defense, a feat so remarkable that it has left an indelible mark on both sacred and secular annals. As attested in Psalm 48 verse 8, the Lord's promise to his people is eternal. The historical evidence underscores this enduring truth, affirming that the God of history remains the Lord of the present. These events, recorded as exemplars, serve as a cautionary reminder for those living in the final days. This perspective is further reinforced by 1 Corinthians 10 verse 11, which underscores the importance of being vigilant in the face of spiritual adversity. This narrative serves as a poignant reminder that the extraordinary account of Jerusalem's deliverance is not merely a historical account, but a profound source of lessons that continue to resonate in our present lives. The primary and most profound lesson emerges from Hezekiah's personal response to crisis. When confronted with an overwhelming threat, his immediate reaction was to seek the divine intervention. Hezekiah received the letter from the messengers, read it, and then proceeded to. The narrative of Hezekiah's reign offers a compelling lesson for contemporary reflection. When confronted with a formidable challenge, Hezekiah's initial response was to seek divine intervention, as evidenced by his actions following the receipt of a letter from the messengers. This act of spreading the letter out before the Lord in the temple, 2 Kings 19 verse 14, not only symbolizes his faith but also underscores the notion that the most significant battles often commence in the realm of prayer. The juxtaposition between human trust and divine trust is a salient feature of the narrative. In contrast to Hezekiah's actions, Sennacherib placed his trust in military might, battle experience, and abundant resources. His proclamations, such as, With my many chariots, I have ascended to the heights of the mountains. 2 Kings 19 verse 23 underscore his confidence in his own capabilities. In contrast, Hezekiah proclaimed to his people, "The Lord our God is with us to help us and to fight our battles." 2 Chronicles 32 verse 8. This narrative also conveys a profound lesson about the perils of arrogance, as articulated in Proverbs 16 verse 18. Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. Sennacherib's actions exemplify a challenge not only to others but also to the very foundations of faith. Earthly kingdom, but dared to mock the living God. His dramatic fall serves as a perpetual warning about the consequences of pride. The story teaches us about the importance of balancing faith and action. Hezekiah did not only pray, he also strengthened Jerusalem's defenses, built the Siloam tunnel, prepared weapons. As James 2 verse 17 says, according to the scriptures, the story of Hezekiah serves as a cautionary tale, illustrating the perils of hubris and the necessity of balance between faith and action. The narrative underscores the doctrine that unbridled faith, devoid of tangible actions, is inherently futile. It is noteworthy that true faith does not engender passivity but rather incites judicious action. Furthermore, it offers a profound lesson on the value of patient anticipation of divine intervention. During the period of profound distress and encirclement by the Assyrian army, the citizens of Jerusalem were compelled to repose their trust in the celestial promise. As articulated in Isaiah 30 verse 15, repentance and rest signify salvation, while quietness and trust embody strength. The narrative also elucidates the authentic purpose of divine deliverance, as exemplified by Hezekiah's prayer. Now, Lord our God, deliver us from his hand so that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that you alone, Lord our God, are sovereign. 2 Kings 19:19. The deliverance that is bestowed upon us is not solely for our benefit, but rather, it is for the glory of God. An additional vital lesson is that of the faithful remnant. In a world that had bowed before Assyrian power, Jerusalem remained steadfast in its faith. As it is written, once more, the remnant of the house of Judah will take root in the land and bear fruit upward. 2 Kings 19:30. In the context of our generation's encounter with its own Assyrian adversaries, be they personal challenges, cultural pressures, or threats to our beliefs, the message retains its relevance. The assertion that, if God is for us, who can be against us? Romans 8 verse 31 holds particular significance in light of our circumstances. This narrative underscores the immutability of the God of Hezekiah, as articulated in Hebrews 13 verse 8, who remains unchanging in his promises, omnipotent in his power, and unwavering in his faithfulness for those who repose their trust in him. The Lord's magnanimous deeds, as recounted in Psalm 126 verse 3, evoke profound jubilation. The narrative of Jerusalem's miraculous deliverance resonates through the ages as an enduring testament to God's omnipotence and unshakable fidelity. Summarizing this extraordinary journey, we observe the confrontation between two formidable entities, the most formidable earthly empire of its era and the Almighty God. On one side stood 185,000 soldiers, war chariots, and a reputation of invincibility. On the other, a king who chose to kneel, a prophet who dared to proclaim the Lord's word, and a people who decided to trust. When the sun rose that historic morning, revealing the Assyrian camp covered with corpses, it was not just a military victory that was witnessed, it was the vindication of faith. As it is written, many say, who will show us the prosperity? Lord, let the light of your face shine upon us. Psalm 4 verse 6. This narrative continues to resonate profoundly with our generation, particularly in a world that frequently challenges God's sovereignty and derides those who place their trust in him. Hezekiah's story serves as a poignant reminder that the power and might that reside within us surpass those that are manifest in the world, as articulated in 1 John 4 verse 4. The dramatic conclusion of this story does not signify its termination, rather, it marks a new beginning. In accordance with the prophetic scriptures, the zeal of the Almighty will ultimately bring about the fulfillment of his divine purpose, as foretold in 2 Kings 19 verse 31. Indeed, this was the case. The city of Jerusalem not only survived, but it also prospered. The remnant did not merely endure, but it flourished. In the context of our own challenges and battles, the words of Hezekiah continue to resonate. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you, he will fight for you. 2 Chronicles 32 verse 7. This narrative serves as a testament to the notion that no situation is insurmountable for God. As the text asserts, Our sovereign Lord, you have made the heavens and the earth by your great power and outstretched arm. Nothing is too hard for you. Jeremiah 32 verse 17. The ultimate lesson is unambiguous. Just as the Lord defended Jerusalem for his own sake and for the sake of his servant David, 2 Kings 19 verse 34, so too should we. This commitment to protect the faithful endures throughout history, as evidenced by the unfailing nature of his promises, the unaltering might of his power, and the unshakable fidelity he displays. Consequently, as the psalmist implores, we are encouraged to maintain unwavering courage, even in the face of daunting natural disasters, such as the collapse of the earth and the descent of mountains into the depths of the sea, as depicted in Psalm 46 verse 2. The same God who delivered Jerusalem remains our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in times of trouble. Psalm 46 verse 2. This story continues to inspire generations, reminding us that, as the Lord himself says, not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit. Zechariah 4 verse 6. To him be all glory, honor, and praise forever and ever. Amen.